after nearly 5 years in captivity.
I'm not one that likes to trade for prisoners.
To save the life of Sergeant Bergdahl.
If you capture a U.S. soldier, you can trade that soldier. What does this tell terrorists?
It is a mistake.
Bowe is coming home.
News updates at the top and bottom of each hour. FM News Talk 104.7.
Pittsburgh's place to talk.
WPGB. Available anywhere you go on the iHeartRadio app. Download it now.
7:06 on your Monday morning. Bloom Daddy with you. 1-800-507-1047. Okay, the latest on Bowe Bergdahl. You had Secretary of State John Kerry. He took his turn the other day defending the recent 5-for-1 swap that freed Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl from 5 years of Taliban captivity. He appeared on CNN's State of the Union. He said it would have been offensive and incomprehensible to consciously leave an American behind no matter what. Regarding whether Bergdahl was a prisoner of war or a deserter, he added there's plenty of time for people to sort through what happened. We don't know as of yet. That's according to John Kerry. I bring on Brian Bouffard, former Navy Lieutenant Commander, JAG officer who defends military members in court-martial cases worldwide. Brian is joining us for a second time. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. This is starting to sound like an episode of Homeland. How does this revelation, not even what John Kerry said, but the revelation that when Bowe Bergdahl was a captive, he sympathized with them at one point. At another point, he tried to escape, was treated like an animal, declared jihad on the U.S., was given a gun, walked around with these guys. I mean, really a bizarre sequence of events concerning his imprisonment. Where's it stand now in your mind?
Well, it really is bizarre. It's been a very strange week and a couple of days in this story because there's so many different aspects to it. And what you mentioned specifically, I've never been a prisoner of war. I've never been in confinement. I've never been tortured. And I can't speak to what that could do to somebody once they're there. The legal issue almost begins and ends with what was going on in his head in 2009 when he left. I think everything else that happened to him over there, as horrible as it may have been, or as not horrible as it may have been, we don't know if he was collaborating. That's going to be a question that's really going to come out probably during a sentencing phase.
You're a former Navy Lieutenant Commander, JAG officer. You defend military members in court-martial cases worldwide. How would you defend Bowe Bergdahl right now, knowing that at one point during his captivity, he converted to Islam, fraternized openly with his captors, declared himself a warrior for Islam, but then at the same time, over time, there were periods of hostility where he was treated very much like a hostage. He tried to escape, was kept in a metal cage like an animal, but then on the heels of that, he's given a gun and he's walking around like he's one of these guys. So how would you build this defense case for Bowe Bergdahl, Brian?
The first thing I would do is hope that I would be brought on the case early enough to where I could start talking with the government about an immunity deal. I think that he could potentially have the kind of intelligence on what's going on over there based on 5 years in captivity that it would have been worth it to the government to agree not to prosecute him if he fully cooperates and gives up that information. As far as actually defending him at a trial, there's just so much that we're just kind of all forced to speculate about right now, and there seems to be very little hard evidence. I'd need to know what that real evidence is before I could really craft a defense. But I do think that if he is tried, the cornerstone of the government's case is going to be the testimony of all of those soldiers who served with him there on the ground at the base in 2009.
And all of them so far that I have seen interviewed, they all have stuck to the same storyline, Brian, and that is this guy deserted them. This guy is a deserter.
They absolutely do appear to be overwhelmingly on that one side. In fact, I said overwhelmingly. To my knowledge, it's exclusively on that one side. And that tells that where there's smoke, there's fire. So I think the issue of whether he deserted is going to be a much easier question for the courts to potentially deal with than was he aiding the enemy. That question, so much of that can only come from him himself, which is another reason why if I were his lawyer, I would be shutting his mouth right now.
I'm talking to Brian Bouffard, former Navy Lieutenant Commander, JAG officer who defends military members in court-martial cases worldwide. We're talking about his captivity and how at one time it seems like he's with them, another time he seems like he's against them. And Brian, I'm with you. I don't know how I would react under the same circumstances. I would like to think that I would be hardcore and, flipping the bird and not sympathize with them, but at the same time, you're trying to stay alive. So You're saying that, you could use that type of behavior. You could probably mold that to help him in his defense. But how would you overcome all of his former platoon mates in unity saying, this guy's a deserter?
I mean, that's a great question. And some things are so difficult to overcome that you can't. Whether this is one of those things, it's just too early to tell. But I absolutely get the very strong impression that those witnesses are going to be very solid witnesses, and I think that's going to pose a real problem for his defense when and if he gets there.
As a military man, how do you, let's take away the legal hat here, how do you feel as a military man about Bowe Bergdahl on a personal level?
On a personal level, I kind of want to have sympathy for him. He strikes me as potentially a very weak-minded person. And I say that not to insult him, but to maybe give some clarification to how he might have behaved once he's over there. He clearly made an incredibly stupid decision. I think that he could probably be convicted of stupidity right off the bat. Is he nefarious? Is he evil? I don't know. But those are the kind of questions that kind of swirl around in my mind about what was in his head when he left. Did he have any intent of harming or allowing to come to harm Americans? We don't know, but that's key for me.
Brian, last question I have for you from a legal angle. Former U.S. Attorney General Michael McCasey said that the law requiring the president to notify Congress 30 days before freeing detainees from the U.S. military prison is unconstitutional. He said Article 2 of the Constitution makes him the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, these people in the custody of the armed forces. So basically he's saying the law that makes him notify is unconstitutional. I listened to another former U.S. Attorney General under Bush say, look, it says he has to notify them. It doesn't say Congress can override him, so what's the big deal anyway? From a legal standpoint, how are you looking at this 30-day thing?
I haven't really examined the constitutionality of it to my own satisfaction. I can say that Article 2 really simply just says, yes, he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, period. I mean, it says a lot of other things, but that's the only real relevant thing that it says. But just because the president is the commander-in-chief doesn't give him license to do literally anything he wants to regarding the military. So the constitutionality of it, I don't know, but I think that Article 2 is probably not sufficient to really square that issue away one way or the other.
Brian, I have a feeling we're going to be talking many times over the course of this story because it's not going to be going away. I appreciate it.
Up to. Take care.
That's Brian Bouffard, an attorney who specializes in military cases. Now, Arizona GOP Senator John McCain said the White House could have released lower-ranking Taliban members in the swap for Bowe Bergdahl rather than 5 commanders requested by the Taliban. Exactly what McCain said, part of that quote. He said these 5 are the top 5 picked by the Taliban, not by us, but by the Taliban. And Senate Intelligence Committee Chairwoman Dianne Feinstein of California, not backing down, even though it's her own party. She isn't buying Secretary of State John Kerry's claim that it's baloney. What adult says baloney? To think that U.S. troops would be more at risk after the swap of the 5 Taliban prisoners. She said Secretary Kerry made a very strong statement this morning. It's hard to be comfortable when you really haven't been briefed on the intricacies of carrying out this agreement. Feinstein added that we have no information on how the U.S. will make sure the 5 Taliban leaders under supervision by Qatar won't return to the fight. It's 15 after the hour, Monday morning. You're listening to Bloom Daddy.